Do you ever get frustrated that not enough people in your target market actually really appreciate how amazing your product or service is? In other words, do you ever get frustrated that you think it's really clear why what you're offering is so unique and different and why someone should take it, but yet so many people in your target market just don't seem to appreciate that? Well, if you've ever felt that way, guess what? You're in good company, because the vast majority of business owners and entrepreneurs feel that way. They feel like they've got something really unique and cool and interesting that would solve their problem, and they can't understand why other people just don't appreciate what they appreciate. Well, part of the reason is because you haven't really differentiated your offering in a substantial way so that it's so obvious for someone why they should choose you. I'll give you a case in point. Let's just say that you right now want to book a flight. I know plenty of my friends who the first thing they're going to do is they're going to type in Southwest. And if I were to say, why do you do that? They're going to say, well, because I hate paying for my bags. And when I go with Southwest, my bags fly free, right? In other words, there's a differentiator that is so compelling that they're not even looking at anyone else. They're automatically going to Southwest. Now, what's fascinating is that if they looked at some of the other carriers, they could actually get a cheaper flight with paying for their bags, less than they're paying on Southwest, but they don't care because their bags fly free. In other words, you want to create differentiators such that it's going to cause people to say yes to you and not even look at anybody else. So how can you get to that place? How can you differentiate your business in such a substantial way that an increasing number of people are going to want to say yes to your products and services, and you're going to generate a lot more revenue? So how do you do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. In fact, I'm going to talk to you about how to differentiate your business in just 4 easy steps. And what I did in this video is I thought through what are the major mistakes that most people make when they're trying to differentiate their business, and then I created a positive thing that you're going to do. So if you do these 4 things, basically you're going to eliminate all of the major mistakes that people make when they try to differentiate their business. Sound good? Well, let's dig in. All right, number 1, the first thing you want to do is you want to know your competitors. Know your competitors. What is amazing to me is how many business owners and entrepreneurs try to differentiate their business without even looking at their competitors, and it happens all the time. In fact, one of the first clients that I had was a credit union back in DC area, and we were meeting and talking with one another before we're going to do our strategy session, and I knew the answer to this question ahead of time, so I'd actually prepared my laptop with a series of tabs in the browser. And so we got to the discussion, and I said, so what do you think differentiates our credit union from all the other banking institutions that are around us? And I knew what their answer was going to be. They were all going to say, well, of course, we're not driven by the profit motive. We're about serving our members. So we're all about customer service. That's what differentiates. We have better customer service. I said, that's interesting. I was pretty sure you're going to say that. So take a look at this. And I had up on my laptop, projected on the screen, and I went tab after tab after tab of banks that were all around them. And every single one of them said, great customer service, remarkable customer service, exceptional customer service. Like everyone talked about their customer service. I said, listen, if everyone's talking about it, it means nothing. And you can't differentiate without knowing your competitors. It sounds so obvious, and yet it's not. Okay. So if you want to differentiate your business, you have to know what everyone else is doing. Now, it's interesting. There was one bank that did something different, and that was TD Bank. And what TD Bank did is they didn't talk about customer service. They talked about convenience. Okay, a subset of customer service. And what they figured was that people wanted convenience, especially in terms of hours. So they were open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. This was back in DC. And they're open 7 days a week, including Sundays, if I remember correctly, 11 to 5. No one else was doing that, right? But because they knew everyone else was competing on this, they decided to compete on something completely different. But they couldn't have done that without knowing what everyone else was saying. So what are all your competitors saying? Are you getting their emails? Have you looked at their website over the last month? By the way, it doesn't matter what you looked at 6 months ago or a year ago. I want to know, what did you look at this past month? Because if you want to differentiate now, you need to know what they're doing, saying, and sending out to the marketplace. So number 1, you got to know your competitors if you're going to differentiate. Seems obvious. It is broken all the time. Okay, number 2. The second thing you want to do is find a metric. You want to find a metric. One of the things that you have to do if you want to get a lot of people to say yes to you is you've got to increase their ability to have certainty and trust that you can actually deliver on the promise you make. Well, one way to do that is to find a metric that proves that you can do what you say you're about to do. For example, years ago, one of my clients was a company at that point called Mouse & House, not called True Place, and they do virtual floor plan tours like if you want to go buy a house. and you'd be able to see the whole house and pictures of the whole house, etc. And so they hired me in 2007, 2008, right at the beginning of the market downturn, right? In a time that was the worst time that you could do it. And we're trying to figure out, like, how do we grow our business in the worst market possible? And one of the things I wanted to do is help them figure out how to differentiate their business. So we went out to the marketplace, and because they work with listing agents, I said, how many days does it take someone to sell a listing here now in the DC market at that time? And it was 112 days. I said, let's go to your top competitors and let's see how long it takes them to sell using your product. And we found out that it was 45 days. So we went to the market with a message: sell your listing 67 days faster. Notice we didn't say sell your listing faster. We didn't say sell it 2 months faster. We said sell it 67 days. Specific numbers matter, right? Round numbers usually don't work. So if you have a 20, hopefully you can get 20.1, right? Like you don't want to be general. You want to have specific numbers. 67 days faster. So in the worst market for homes, and they were selling a product to people who sell in that market, their revenues went up over 30%. How do you do that? Because we differentiated their offering to something that mattered to them, right? So the second thing is you need to find a metric. So find a way to find a metric that can help prove that you really can deliver on the thing that you say you're going to do. We not only tell you we can sell it faster, we're telling you we can sell it 67 days faster if you use us, right? Specificity matters. That's number two. Number three leaps off of number two, and that is that you want to differentiate on what your customer wants, not what you think is cool. Differentiate on what your customer wants, not what you think is cool. Most business owners and entrepreneurs think the features of the thing that they offer are what people want. It's kind of like in cameras, years ago with cameras, it'd be like, this camera only has 8 megapixels and ours has 10. And then the other one said, well, this one has 11 and this one has 12. And people really didn't care. They were focused in on the megapixel of the camera. That really wasn't the point. Nowadays, I'm seeing it on computer monitors, for example. Like ours has 144 megahertz refresh rate and ours has 160. Most people, they really have no idea what that means, right? So you need to focus in on the things that really matter to the customer. What do they want? And what they want is they want a result. So I work on a MacBook Pro. I'm recording this on a MacBook Pro right now. I've been an Apple fanboy since 82, 83. So I've been around for a long time. And for the first couple decades when Steve Jobs was around, he had one phrase that he used all the time. And that was, it just works. In fact, you can Google Steve Jobs, it just works, and you'll see montages of him saying it over and over again. It just works. Now, why was that such a big motto? It was because when you used other computers, you had all these peripherals and other things, and they didn't always work together, and it was frustrating. It was difficult. But when you bought a Mac product, it all worked. It just worked. And when you're a computer user, not somebody who's a geek who knows how to work on the inside of and wants to work on the inside, but just somebody who wants to use a computer. I need to type up a Word document. I need to create a spreadsheet. You just want it to work. You want to turn it on and start working. You don't want to have to do a bunch of other stuff and make sure everything works. So it just worked very well because it was the thing that the customer wanted. They found what customers cared about and made sure that thing we differentiated on. So don't differentiate on other things. Focus on the thing that they want the most. And by the way, a funny aside on that story, I remember a couple years later when digital cameras first came out, my dad, who was not a Mac person, got one, I think for either his birthday or Christmas. They're right near each other. And it was a couple days after Christmas, and I said, so Dad, how's your digital camera? And he said, well, Bruce, I've been spending the last 3 days trying to figure out how to get the pictures on this camera onto my computer. And I remember saying, hey, Pop, I'm a Mac guy, so let me show you how it works here. And I took the camera, plugged it in, and it just worked, right? It just worked was what we wanted. You didn't want to spend days trying to figure out something. So that's number 3. So number 1, make sure you know your competitors. Number 2, make sure you find a metric. Number 3, make sure you differentiate it on what your customers want. And that's not necessarily what you think is cool. So less on the feature, more on the thing that they want, the result. And the last thing that I would encourage you to do is differentiate in a way that is significantly different than your competitors. Significantly different. In other words, when people start doing, like I said, the megahertz thing or the pixels or whatever the little tweaks they'd like, no one really cares about those little things. They don't care if what you're offering is like 2% or 5% better than what someone else is. They want something that's significantly different. When I talk to you about the TD Bank, if normal banking hours, let's say 9 to 5, and they're offering 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday, that's significantly different. If you go to Cirque du Soleil, right, they're in the circus business, but you never thought of Cirque du Soleil and Ringling Brothers as similar, right? Because this had animals, this did not have animals. This had 3 rings, this had 1 ring, right? This was for adults, this was for the family, right? Like, they're so significantly different that you'd say, I need to go to this one because this is really, really cool. Or you might say, I don't really like that stuff, I want to go to this one. Either way, they were significantly different. So if you want to be able to differentiate, don't try to be 5% or 10% better. Find something where you can be 100% better or 200% better, something significantly different than what everyone else is offering, because no one notices little minor micro differences. They only notice something that's significant. So as you're thinking about your business and how you can differentiate it, I'd use those 4 simple steps because you'll overcome 4 big mistakes. So number 1, make sure that you know your competitors, because if you don't know them, you're probably marketing stuff that's similar and now you're a commodity. You don't want to be a commodity. Number 2, make sure you find a metric so that you have the ability to communicate trust to the other person. Like, we can really deliver on this promise. Number 3, differentiate on the things that people care about, not what you care about, but what they care about. And then finally, make sure that whatever your differentiator is, make sure it's significantly different than what someone else is offering. Because if you do those 4 things, then you're going to be able to move your market. You're going to be the TD Bank, you're going to be the Cirque du Soleil, you're going to be the Apple, because people want something that's significantly different, that matters to them, and that they can trust is actually going to deliver on the promise. So if you can do that, you'll do great. So hopefully you found this valuable. If you did, I encourage you to make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to, whether you subscribe by video or by podcast, and make sure you come back week after week, because our commitment here is to give you ideas and insights that are actionable, that can help you grow and scale a self-operating business that can double every 12 to 36 months. So until next time, to your accelerated success, Bruce out.